With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
How
Yeah.
much?
Hey, Governor, two parts, if that's okay, related. First, your brother kind of famously, during the beginning of his first term, said of Vladimir Putin that he got a sense of his soul and said he was straightforward and trustworthy. You're calling him a bully. Can you square that?
Sure, I think Putin's changed, for sure. He's changed over time, and he has been emboldened by the fact that whether it's true or not, the perception is that we've pulled back. And so people do change, and this is an example of that for sure.
Governor,
Can I
talk about
just,
the
may I,
follow-up question.
if you don't mind, related about that and what you said about people here wanting the U.S. to be more involved. You
Yeah.
met this morning with the now former Speaker of the Polish Parliament. He was caught on tape saying some not so nice, colorful things about the U.S.
Yeah.
Did you consider canceling that? And more specifically, in your conversation, did you get him to clarify what he meant about his feelings about the U.S.? Because it seems to be counter to what you were talking about.
In our conversation, it was clear to me that he's a strong believer in strong ties with the United States. I was surprised by his comments, but the simple fact is that he's been a consistent believer that the United States can play a very constructive role. Maybe there's a degree of frustration that over the last few years we've kind of changed course as it relates to the deployment of the missile system, for example, and other things. So perhaps he was expressing frustration. We didn't talk specifically about that, though. He is the second most powerful man, I guess, in the government. He is a supporter of the United States and a friend of the United States, and I felt like it was more than appropriate to meet with him.
As it relates to
Victor Reuters, do you think that creating security on the eastern flank without a permanent U.S. or NATO military presence is possible?
I don't know, but I do think that we should expand our presence here through deployments of different training exercises. That we ought to have a more significant presence in this region for sure. It's expanded right now because of a specific training exercise, but under normal times, as I understand it, the numbers are in the hundreds, and that doesn't send a signal of strength. I think we need to be more robust. We need to encourage our NATO allies in Europe to invest more in their own national security. We need to do the same in our country. We need to be consistent about what types of actions we'll take should there be further aggression. So I think there needs to be a strategy. It needs to be comprehensive, and as part of that, I do think forward-leaning in this region is appropriate.
It's forward-leaning. Would you commit to being an advocate for Georgia joining NATO, and would you support Ukraine?
There's a process that these countries need to go through. I think that process is established, and it's the right one.
Governor, you alluded to the West and the help that it gave to Poland and bringing Poland into modernity. In terms of Ukraine, how much should be spent in terms of the money that it really takes? The Economist has called the amount of money, the $1.8 billion gotten from the EU, contemptible. The U.S. has guaranteed about $2 billion in loans. Would you advocate for more foreign aid from the West to help Ukraine?
Well, first, I think we need to provide defensive military support, because it's very hard to make the structural reforms necessary and grow the economy in a world where there's a threat of further aggression. That would be the first step. Secondly, simultaneously with that, I think in return for any kind of aid, and the United States, I think, should play a role in this. I think Europe needs to play the most significant role. There should be significant reforms as well, and this is where Poland can play a very constructive role. It wasn't that long ago that Poland was transformed from a communist country, a socialist country, into a free market social democracy. And it was extraordinary how fast it happened. I just had a meeting with hosted by the Solidarity Fund and the Polish American Foundation that was an offshoot, by the way, of a U.S. effort of investing in the future of this country. It was an extraordinary success. The shift of power to local governments, the respect for private property, respect for rule of law, all of these things are are essential for Ukraine to grow economically and to get out from under the significant problem they have as it relates to their debt. So financial aid is important, but only if it is attached to significant reforms as well. And the example that one can look to is here, a neighbor of Ukraine, which I think provides a path for Ukraine to go forward.
Governor,
Yeah.
you said you don't know about permanent bases in Poland. What needs to change for you to know whether there should be permanent bases?
Maybe I should get classified briefings and, look, you know, on Monday, I hope to make a decision about running for the presidency, and you're treating me with a lot of respect here that I need to make this decision up, you know, I'll talk to my national security advisor and get back to you. How about that? Yes,
Governor, may I ask you a domestic question for a minute?
I'm sure.
Back in Florida, there have been reports about the use of H-1B visas, which you've talked about a lot. And at Disney, they have been employed to replace American workers who've been asked to train those who will take their jobs. And Senator Nelson has asked for an investigation. As somebody who's really invested in immigration reform, is this an appropriate use of the H-1B program?
You know, I've seen this, I've actually seen it on Fox 3 or 4 times, this very subject, and I've been curious to know what the full story is, because on the surface it appears just as you described it. And I think that would be an inappropriate use of H-1B visas and then to ask people who are losing their jobs to train the people that are taking the jobs. If that's the whole story, that's inappropriate. But sometimes, I don't know, sometimes when you see things on get news reports, you don't get the full picture. Maybe that's the case here. I've been here, so I haven't been able to actually find out what the full story is if there's a different element of it, and I've not seen any response by Disney. I can tell you, as a former governor of Florida, that just for the record here, I'm a big Disney fan. They generate thousands and thousands of jobs for Central Florida. They generate billions of dollars over the long haul of sales tax revenues for our state. The fact that we have a lot of visitors, many of whom have their dreams come true when they go to Disney World, is a reason why we don't have a personal income tax in the state of Florida, for which I'm very grateful. So if you write about this, please add that part of it.
Governor.
Yeah.
Governor, a question and a follow-up if I can. You said, and you're about halfway through this now, that you came to listen and learn.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you feel already as though your views have been changed, informed in any way. Can you give us an example when they said to you they want America to be more involved? Is there something you said to them about this is the president I will be?
I learned both in Germany and Poland that there are shared values, but there are different approaches and different views on these subjects, and understanding how, you know, based on one's own history, why people, you know, advocate their positions has been really useful to me. It hasn't changed my thinking about the role of America in the world. That we can't be all things to all people, we can't be the world's policeman, but we can be clear and consistent and engaged, both politically and diplomatically, and in terms of military. We need to be engaged, and so I guess my views have been validated more in that regard.
And I'm wondering if I may follow up, just given that you have a big decision to make on Monday, what your political calculus was in deciding to spend so many days leading up to that here, especially when there has been some concern about changes within the organization, but even more so, just getting ready to be prepared to get into a very crowded and very competitive field.
Well, just to be clear here, we don't have an organization for a campaign for president until the candidate announces, so I would discount a little bit of these kind of changes, but I have a good team.
Though, Governor, no?
No, not until I not until I look into a camera and say that I'm a candidate. So hopefully that'll be coming soon if it's to come. So, but I'm excited about the team that is working the Right to Rise path for sure. Whether I'm here or not, that doesn't change anything. I decided to come to Germany, to Poland, and now tomorrow to Estonia, because I think this is a really, the U.S. relationship with Europe is hugely important. And there has been a lot of talk about pivots and a lot of talk about U.S. Being part of the community of nations, and I think making it clear that we're in it for the long haul is important. And the countries that were picked, I think, are vital in many ways to making that statement. So, you know, it's just, I think it's the right thing to do. We could have gone other countries as well and made another statement, but I think this one's really important. Yes?
Last question here.
Governor, since you got here, there's been a number of stories examining your rhetoric and record regarding single mothers back home. There's been some talk of a 1995 book you wrote in which you warned there was, quote, no longer a stigma attached to this behavior, no reason to feel shame, and a law that you allowed passed in Florida in 2001 and later repealed, requiring women who put their children up for adoption to publicly detail sexual history that might identify the father. Have your views changed since the book, and with regard to the law, do you have any regrets how it was handled?
As it relates to the book was written in 1995. My views have evolved over time, but my views about the importance of dads being involved in the lives of children hasn't changed at all. In fact, since 1995, if you look at this book was a book about cultural indicators. The country has moved in the wrong direction. We have a 40+% out of wedlock birth rate. And if you think about this from the perspective of children, it puts it's a huge challenge for single moms to raise children in the world that we're in today. And it hurts the prospects, it limits the possibilities of young people being able to live lives of purpose and meaning. So in Florida, we tried to work on this by increasing dramatically the amount of child support that was collected. Part of the reason why this law was established was just that. To assume that you can create a fatherless society and not have bad outcomes, I think, is the wrong approach. And so I don't remember what the repeal was. I can remember the purpose of the law was to enhance the ability to collect child support because men have the responsibility of taking care of their children. We did the same with our focus on education in Florida. During my time, had significant reforms where low-income children probably had the greatest gains of any group of like-kind students in the country. And so I just suggest to people that instead of just reading a book, although I hope you bought it because it was not a bestseller, it probably may have generated about 10,000 sales. Buy it next time. Whoever read it, hope they bought more than one copy. I hope someone looks at the full record that I had as governor.
But
yes?
As a follow-up, has your thinking, you say your thinking has evolved.
Yeah, sure it has.
Has your thinking evolved on the role of shame, and were you speaking of it in a policy context?
Yes, I was speaking of it in the policy context, and the focus was on men. This is the part that, if you read it, I think it might become clearer with this explanation. Thank you all very much. We'll see you out there.
Governor, one sports question. Are you following the exploits of former Floridian LeBron James? He has a big game.
I am. He's breaking my heart. Although I'm for him. I have to admit, I'm a huge LeBron fan. I just wish he was playing for the Heat.
Thanks, Governor.
Thank you.